Okay, well, welcome to the Donut Hustle. So today, we should probably introduce ourselves since this is episode 1. I'm Dan Bertelson, and
I'm David Romero.
So, Donut Hustle, episode 1. All right. Today we wanted to discuss something that I think that is important to all those out there hustling and grinding, and that is kind of the the process and the dealing with of stress and anxiety in particular. So we have some methods we wanted to share with all of you on, dealing with anxiety and where we're at with that, because I feel like a lot of people out there doing the hustle and grind probably are pretty anxious, right?
Yeah,
so
it's a lot.
I guess I'll start off. Well, I've been a sufferer of anxiety for my entire adult life, and it's never been to the point where it's debilitating. If that's where you're at, then hopefully some of what we're maybe talking about might be helpful. But I'm just saying, for me, I have found it to be just more of a nuisance than anything. Like it just kind of wears you down, and then I feel like the anxiety turns into a little bit of depression. Yeah. And so for me, I developed a way of kind of dealing with it, and I hope that it's maybe helpful to any of those watching. We do have to say that we're not medical experts, so this is all for entertainment. We're just two idiots on YouTube, right? So it's not this is not medical advice. And with that, I'll say that if you are suffering from anxiety or any other mental health related type of ailment that's affecting your quality of life, then please seek medical attention and from a professional. And if you don't like the answer you're getting from whatever doctor or whatever, then always go maybe check with another doctor. But one thing that I've done, I call it my Delete Method, and I'll describe it. It's a little silly, but what I do is when I have a little moment of quiet where I can sit down and not be, interrupted by other people, is I'll take a moment, I'll close my eyes, and I'll picture a computer screen. So it's just like a desktop. And what I picture is whatever is causing me the stress and anxiety at the moment, I actually picture it, and I picture it like shrinking and going inside of a file folder. And then I picture the little mouse cursor coming over, clicking onto that folder, dragging it and dropping it into the waste bin. Yeah. and then just for one thing further, right, I actually visualize my own finger. I'll have my eyes closed, and I'll actually make the motion. Sometimes I'm sure I just look like a moron, but I'll make the motion, and I'll physically, or I'll mentally vision my finger hitting that delete key, and it says delete. And sometimes I'll actually even say delete, like just to reinforce it.
Yeah, I love that. And
it purges it from my mind. And I'll do this not only with anxiety, but just even, sometimes you get those thoughts that creep in your head. You as an entrepreneur and as a business owner and just as a guy that's out there, hustling and grinding, a lot of times we have a lot of self-defeating thoughts, right? A lot of thoughts that we just don't want to have, right? I mean,
we're our own worst enemies, right?
Yeah. And then sometimes I just get these just nasty, horrible thoughts about myself or about my situation, and I'm like, where did this come from, right? And what I'll do, instead of trying to dwell on it, is I'll take that negative thought, that negative energy, and I'll stuff it in that file folder. I'll drag it over and drop it in the waste bin and hit delete. And for me, I found it to be very therapeutic, and I'm hoping that maybe it might be therapeutic for others. But what do you do?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and because I think there's a lot of people in the world right now that are suffering from this in one form or the other, right? Some are, like you said, completely debilitating. Some don't even recognize they might even have it yet.
Absolutely.
Right? There's a whole different spectrum, huge spectrum,
right,
where people fall in line. But this is something that I do, and I don't know if it'll be helpful to you guys or not, but I'm a man of faith. I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do, like, I picture Jesus walking toward me, right, with like a huge Thanksgiving platter, right?
Yeah.
Or like a garbage bag or something.
Right. Love it.
And I picture him just standing in front of me, and I just start unloading everything, right? From my, I kind of feel like I have like a backpack of like stress, anxiety, whatever it is, right? Marital problems, financial issues, work issues, kids, how am I going to help my kids, and whatever. I just start unloading all these things onto this huge Thanksgiving platter is what I like to call it.
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Just so, do you talk to Jesus? Do you, when you say you unload, are you verbalizing it, or are you just visually seeing it?
To be honest with you, I've done a bit of both.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Right?
Gotcha.
But I would say the majority of the time, I just visually see it.
Okay.
Right?
That's me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I just lay it all out there. And when I'm done, I picture him just turning around.
Yeah.
And walking away with it.
I love it.
Until I can't see it anymore, right?
So he just takes it.
He just takes it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a huge burden just lifted off of me, right?
Absolutely.
But here's the trick, Dan. What I've realized in my life, at least, and what I've noticed with most people in life is we give it away. We hit that delete button, or we see Christ take it away, or however else we deal with it.
Right.
And we say, oh, just kidding. Hold on a second, right? And then we take it back.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the key. That's the hard part, is letting it go.
Agreed.
Like how do you let it go for good?
Agreed.
Because as humans, we're like, we feel like comfortable with these feelings.
100%. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, wow, that's super powerful. I'm visualizing. I mean, our methods. What's interesting is we didn't discuss this beforehand, right? We were just like, hey, well, let's have a podcast and talk about anxiety, because it's talked about a lot amongst everyone, really.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that your methodology of dealing with your anxiety is, I mean, respectfully identical in the way that we're basically flushing it. You're giving it to Jesus, and Jesus is taking it away. Yeah. I'm hitting that delete bin, and I know it's gone in cyberspace, right, or whatever. Yeah. It's fascinating to me that again, we didn't have discussions prior to that. We have a very similar method in how we purge ourselves of these negativities, right? But to what you just said, I absolutely have to agree that there are times where you almost just feel like you become so accustomed to having that anxiety and so accustomed to having that stress that when it's alleviated, even just for a moment, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't feel normal. Like give me some back, right? Yeah, which is totally destructive to the whole purpose. But it's very interesting that you bring that up, because I wanted to talk about I tried something new. My wife talked me into it, and I'm like, so my wife is in healthcare, and so she had some experience with something called neurofeedback, and I know doing some Google searches and stuff, you definitely hear like both sides of the spectrum. Like people are like they don't believe in it or whatever, or they think it's kind of a scam or whatever, and then there's other people that swear by it. So I'm just a little bit skeptical just in my personality to begin with. So I was really a skeptic, and she basically talked me into it. She's like, listen, we're going to go get her brain scanned, and we did. And the person, the practitioner that brought out the brain scans, like, it was amazing, dude. Like, he's never met me before, right? And nor my kids, because we did the whole family. And he pushed out this piece of paper, and he goes, well, let me describe you, Dan. And I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead, dude.
Yeah, gave it to me.
Right? Yeah. Let's hear what you got to say, man. And he to a T, like stuff that you don't really, the darker parts of my personality that my wife is, she's probably the only, maybe my kids a little bit, and my parents, but the more like intimate parts of your personality that the everyday person doesn't get to see, he was like pointing out. And he's like, well, yeah. He goes, I'm just looking at him like, serious. And he goes, well, that's this little colored spot right here on your brain. And this, and I'm like, wow, this is like some crazy voodoo, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of really what I chalked it up to. I'm like, this is some crazy voodoo. Yeah. But then he started going into, it's been around since like the mid to late 50s, and NASA has adopted to it. It's still in the NASA program today for the astronauts, and they have performance protocols and this and that. And so anyway, I am fully a believer now. I've gone through, several sessions. I think I've done like 30 sessions, and now I'm going to be going into the performance protocol and stuff. But my point to all of this is that for the first time in my life, this is within the last few months, it is the first time in my life that I live without anxiety. And it is really, really odd. And I only bring it up because of what you said about, hey, Jesus, come back, right?
Yeah.
Because living the last 2 months, and again, it's only been 8 weeks, but living without anxiety for the last 8 weeks has been odd. It's been interesting. And so not that I miss the anxiety, but I feel like a different person. I feel like I'm more free in my mind. My mind is like the chains have kind of been loosened or removed. And so super awesome, but I totally get why you're like, well, wait a minute, that's a little bit of part of my identity. Like bring that back. And there's a part of me that's like, am I really the same? I feel like I'm the same person, but I feel like different. And I'm kind of like, I don't miss it. But to that point though, I think that it's almost like how people can get addicted to like an abuser, right? Or they want to bring an abuser back into a relationship or something, because it's like, this is the norm. Yeah,
that's the thing. People were so used to living a certain way. And I think a lot of it, unfortunately, and I'm not a professional, but from my experience and the things that I've learned, is that the way we were programmed, we're used to living a certain way that when we try to get rid of something, when we recognize, okay, now this is good, but you're like, oh my goodness, I've had 30 years like this, I've had 40 years like this. How do I just let it go and change? Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So I guess we kind of divulged into, but there are methods out there. We have a very similar one. Yours is much more faith-based. So for those that are, people of faith, then I think that's a really good maybe method for you to consider. I consider myself a person of faith as well, but I didn't really see it in the same way. So I think mine's more, I guess, I don't know the word agnostic or whatever,
but it works. It works.
It's really the same thing, right? It's really just saying, look, your anxiety is lying to you. Take that anxiety energy and get rid of it, dispose of it, right? Hit that delete button, or let Jesus or whatever faith you may be, whatever belief you have, let that come in and take that away, right? Because the problem is if you're out there trying to hustle and grind, and that's what we're all here trying to do, that anxiety can be stifling. If it's not like, there are some people that's literally crippling, like they can't function. It gets so bad at times, but even if you're suffering from like a mild amount of anxiety, I feel like it still stifles you and your creativity and your productivity, and eventually it just becomes so much that you're just like...
I agree, Dan. And here's the thing, when you break it down, anxiety, and this is the topic for a different day, but anxiety at the end of the day comes down to fear.
Absolutely.
You're right? Yeah. Like you're fearing something. Yep. Right? Yep. So how do we get rid of this fear? How do we push through this fear? And there's all kinds of different forms of anxiety that will come on, right? As entrepreneurs, you're like, oh, I'm anxious because I don't know how to do this. Right. Right? What if I fail? Yep. Or what if I win? Then what? What if this works out? What do I do next?
Yes. Yes. I have the strangest form now. And I want to be clear when I say that I live without anxiety anymore. I don't live without stress. I mean, stress is like external, and there's still stressors I deal with every day, but I just deal with it differently. I don't let it get under my skin where I'm just like vibrating, my skin's like tingling because I'm so anxious. So I still have stress, and I still deal with stress. But to that, the one thing that I do, which I think is so weird, and we don't have enough time to go into this, but I love that you just mentioned the fear part. I actually have a fear of success.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that?
No, for me personally, no. But I know many people that have.
Isn't that bizarre though?
Yeah.
Like, you're a successful guy. You've had lots of areas of success in business, and you live a very successful life. I would say that I have had my fair share of success as well, but I'm, like many of you, I'm wanting to take it to that next level, right? Like the uber successful. But I have a complete fear of actually succeeding. Because, I was raised very, very poor, and maybe this is something that a lot of people that were born in, what I'd call, probably intense poverty. I mean, I don't know, and there's always worse cases of poverty, but where you grow up without.
Yeah.
And that's what and that's what you're programmed with, and that's home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's who you maybe don't want to admit, but who you are deep down inside, because that's all you've ever known. And even if you've had success, and even if you've got maybe like $1 million in the bank, and maybe you want 20 million in the bank, or 50 million, or 100 million in the bank, I have like this deep fear that what if I was to actually get 50 million in the bank, or 100 million in the bank? Like, I'm terrified of that. And I think the problem is I don't think you can actually achieve it if you're afraid of it.
I agree.
So I think that you have to figure out a way to work through that. And all it is, and again, to your point, is it's fear. It's this fear of, like you said, and I feel sorry I cut you off, but it's like that fear of success, that fear of failure, that fear of whatever it might be. We've got to just remember that, it's all a lie. The fear is a lie.
That's it. Fear's a liar. 100%.
Yeah.
It's a liar. It's like, it'll keep you from achieving your goals, your dreams, and we have to find a way to push past those fears, right?
Yeah.
Which is probably a subject for a different day.
Yeah, I went on too long on that, but yeah.
No, but I mean, just to kind of like, if I could say a few more things on there, but like, I was fortunate enough, like, my parents are immigrants to this country. Okay, they were. Awesome. My father was very, very poor growing up. Mm-hmm. He was the oldest of 10 kids. Wow. His father wasn't in the home, right? He was I mean, I hate to say it, but my grandfather was a drunk. Yeah. Right? Very, very abusive home. My father came to this country looking for a better life. Yeah. My mother came from Cuba. Okay. And both immigrants. Anyway, the point is, my father worked really, really, really hard to provide for our family. I mean, he worked day and night. Yeah. And just put food on the table. We weren't extremely poor. We were very middle class. Yeah. But he worked like. But this is the thing my parents always instilled in me. They always taught me and instilled in me that I was bound and meant for big things in this life, and that I could accomplish anything that I wanted to in this life, right? That's awesome. But to your point, how many of us out there don't have that? Yeah. That are raised differently. Absolutely. Right. And I'm not saying this, I'm not a super ultra successful person, right? But in the back of my mind, because the way I was raised and the things that I was told, I know that I could do more in this life. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So that's why I think is why it's helped me with like some of these fears of being successful. Yeah. Because I've had this programming that, I can do more. Yeah. Right. which is why and the reason why I think part of the reasons why we want to do this podcast, right? To help people understand, look, we're humans. We all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses, we all have our faults. Right. But we can learn from each other, we can grow, and we can win. We can change our programming. Yeah, and I think that's really key. I still struggle with it. I think I'm getting better. I'm understanding that
it's just programming, and I just need to change the programming. But yeah, for anyone that's watching, I think that growing up in poverty, I think the programming is wrong, right? You're programmed. If you grow up in poverty, you're programmed to be poor, right? You're programmed to live in that space, and that's your internal and external programming is saying, well, this is what life is, and it doesn't, and then you have to bust through that, right? So if you're out there hustling and grinding, you got to remember you've got to kind of punch through those walls that are, by the way, invisible, fake, and not even real walls, right? And so it's awesome that your parents were smart enough to try and change that programming and to put that programming into you and say, look, this is the position that we're at because of circumstances or whatever, right? They immigrated, and that's a real tough thing to do, but they had children, and they told their children, you're destined for something greater and better than this. And I think that that's very powerful, and that's part of that programming that needs to be there to help you later on. And you're a product of that, right? You're a product of that.
Yeah, I'm super grateful and blessed to have had that growing up. And we didn't have a lot of things growing up, as far as worldly things, right? Yeah. I would say we were like in the lower part of the middle class, right? If that makes sense. But yeah, I'm super grateful to have had that, But if you look around and you look how people these days speak to each other, or perhaps their children that have these dreams, right? Like I have friends who told me their parents, when they said, "I want to do this for a living when I grow up," they kind of laugh. I'm like, "You'll never do that." And to me, that's so sad. Yeah. Right. Like your dreams are given to you for a reason. And I
can tell you that happened. I'm not trying to trash my parents. My parents did an incredible job. I was raised by a single mom. My dad came in the picture, several years later. But I did have people around me that were very negative. Yeah. Right. And they had reasons to be negative. I mean, I'm not trying to trash them either, but the circumstances caused them to be very, very negative. And when, as a young kid, I'd be like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do this. And they'd be like, yeah, right. You'll never do that. I'm like, look around, buddy. And I'm like, I'm a little kid, like, oh, I can't do any, I can't do any of that. And they're like, no. But yeah, I mean, I proved a lot of them wrong, right? I mean, I've got to have some successes in business and such, but it's really weird that there's a part of me that is fearful of, not so much fearful of failure. Like failure, I've failed enough that I'm not afraid of failure anymore. But I'm actually afraid of, what if this works? Then and I think what it is like, what if it starts to work and starts to do great, and then it just then fails? And that's what I think I'm more afraid of. Is like, right about when I told you, suckers, and then all of a sudden it comes crap. I'm like, oh, oops. That's what I'm afraid of. But anyhow, I'm sure someone out there can relate. But is there anything else that you think we should share? We've gone pretty long, and it's been my fault. I've been carrying on too much. But anything else you want to share on the subject?
Yeah, I don't think really, nothing else really jumping out. I would just say, guys, like, listen, like, if you take anything away from this today, we're all humans. We all have
absolutely
fears. Yep. We all have anxieties. Yep. And the reality is, someone could preach, don't fear, don't fear, don't fear, which is a very important thing but we're all humans. Yeah. Right? We're all going to have these emotions. The trick is going to be once those emotions and thoughts come, to get rid of them as soon as possible. Because those are the things. Deal with them. Yeah. Deal with them right away. Because those are the things that are going to keep you from achieving your goals. Yeah. From achieving for you becoming the person you want to be. Yep. Not just for yourself, but for your family and for the rest of this world that you can help out with, right? Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's great. And that's what we want to do. The whole purpose of this, of all this, is really to, I think our vision is to have a podcast style, a show that helps all of you out there that are, hustling and grinding, that are
out there doing whatever it is to better your life for yourself and your family, to basically bring you kind of some of the latest trends or whatever, and maybe a little bit of entertainment, but really it's to humanize the whole process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you and I have both been out there hustling and grinding, and we're still out there hustling and grinding, right? And we've had lots of failures, which I think is an important thing to talk about.
Agreed.
Because sometimes when someone fails at something, it just shatters them, which it shouldn't. I mean, it's part of the learning process. It is a very important process of eventual success. And we want to humanize the fact that we all have anxiety, we all have stress, we all have, and we all deal with it in different ways. And sometimes we're trying to show you maybe a way of dealing with it that's effective and healthy. At least we think so. There's obviously lots of negative ways to deal with anxiety and depression and stress and all that. So we hope you don't fall down that rabbit hole. But we want you to feel like, hey, I'm not failing because I'm a failure. I'm not failing because I'm stupid, and I'm not having stress and anxiety because I'm broken inside. Right? Even the greatest, most successful business entrepreneurs and some of the richest people in the world are dealing with anxiety and stress, and so we just want to make sure that everyone understands that.
Yeah, it doesn't define you. It doesn't define who you are.
It doesn't define who you are. No, absolutely not. So I think we're going to be done for episode 1. So thank you for joining. And hopefully we'll see you on episode 2. I'm not one of these people that is like, hey, hit the like and subscribe button and all that. But here's the deal. If you hit subscribe, then we know that there's actually people watching, right? And then the little notification bell is important, so that when the second episode that's going to be even better drops, then you'll have the second episode. And I think that really about does it. If you're feeling super charitable, I guess a thumbs up. I don't know.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.